I tell you, whenever you criticise Scotland in Canada, you put your life in your hands because, of course, there are so many people of Scottish origin in this country. Now, many in Scotland are looking for, well, independence. They've had devolution for some time, but now they're pushing further. I think this has resonance in Canada, of course, because of the Quebec situation. Now, there are many differences, language and so on, but it is still a movement to separate, and the British government, the British Prime Minister, they've now agreed to allowing the vote to be extended to people of 16 and 17 years old in a referendum to decide on the independence of the United Kingdom. Author, broadcaster Douglas Murray from the Henry Jackson Society, he joins us now. How are you, sir?
Very good, and very good to be back with you and your audience, Michael.
Thank you so much. Now, we should never predict a result, but what do you think? What's the betting? Will Scotland break after, what is it, more than 200 odd years and become a separate country?
Yes, more. Of course, it's possible. It's very hard to predict. The vote's some way off. I think you have to look at it, first of all, what is the likelihood that a majority of Scots will agree to sever themselves really completely from the rest of the United Kingdom, from England, Wales and Northern Ireland. My own suspicion is that they are unlikely to go for that. But you can never tell. Scottish nationalist politics in recent years has been incredibly volatile and is subject to really very swift change. I mean, to take, as it were, the absurd example, when the film Braveheart came out in 1998, I think it was, the year of around the same time as devolution, the Scottish National Party's share of the vote rocketed up on the basis of that strange and strangely racist anti-English movie. Yeah. So you can never quite predict what bits of lies and bits of fake history and so on will be thrown around. But the other thing is that it may not be anywhere near as ideological as some people think it is. And let me give one quick example. There was a poll that came out last year that showed that the majority of Scots would vote for independence if they were going to be £500 a year better off in an independent Scotland. But if they were going to be £500 a year worse off in an independent Scotland, then the majority would not vote for independence. So in a way, behind all of the sort of Braveheart rhetoric of the SNP and so on, really behind it is a basic matter of economics. And I don't think the economics look terribly good for Scotland.
No, I don't think they do. Of course, any number of rather vulgar comments we could make about Scottish caricatures wanting to save £500. But the Act of Union, what is it, 1701? Is that when the two countries formally came together?
Well, it's just about, and at that point, when the Acts of Union were signed, this really historic animosity was meant to have ended. And it's been up and down, as all of these animosities are over the years. I just would observe on a sort of, as it were, a personal note, as someone who's half English, half Scottish, one of those few people who still refers to themselves as British. Yeah. I just look with sadness at this, and a sort of sense of curiosity as well, because one of the completely bizarre things about these mini-nationalisms that are rearing their heads across the globe at the moment is this. We're all meant to, at the moment, certainly in Europe, all meant to be combining into this wonderful mega-state, this super-state, where mere borders are unimportant and national identity is a thing of the past because national identity only ever leads to the Holocaust and so on. That thing is what we're meant to be all getting at the moment, that we become part of this huge European superstate where France, Germany, Britain, all the rest forget all of their historical differences. But at the same time that's going on, the appeal of these mini-nationalisms seems to be growing. So if you're the Scottish National Party, you can take advantage of an incredibly sectarian mini-national identity whilst wanting to apparently dissolve yourself into the huge identity or non-identity of the European Union. I have to say I can never get my head around that bit.
Well, it's a very comfortable nationalism, isn't it? Very sort of middle-class nationalism, because nothing much is going to happen to you. There's no real persecution. But it's interesting. I think this is where there are some similarities with Canada. The British Prime Minister Cameron, it's obviously a Scottish name. There are people of Scottish descent in all positions of power and influence. We have prime ministers called things like Trudeau and Chrétien and so on. So Quebec and Canada are part of the same. England and Scotland are so intermingled. Can you really separate the two?
No, I mean, in my opinion, you really can't. The only thing is, of course, that these types of nationalism are really built on only one thing, which is oppositionalism.
Yeah.
It's the Scots saying we don't like the English, or we don't want to be like the English. Of course, all of it is fed upon by a lot of stuff of, really, those guys are taking advantage of us. We'd be so rich without them, and so on. But you point to exactly the crucial issue here, which is you can't really pull apart states that have been in union like this. I mean, I haven't done the maths myself. I don't know if Scotland does go independent, whether or not as a half Scot I get £250 a year, more or less. I don't know. I haven't done the maths, but I will. But it's a very confused thing. I think the reason why some of us are so opposed to it is because there is, I think, a form of union, union of nations that works. I would argue that Britain is one of them. I think that Canada is one of them. I think United States of America works. Yeah. I think there are other unions that don't work, which are forced from outside and on top of people's desires, like the EU, which are, yes, I think, broadly not so desirable. Exactly. But it is a terrible shame when you see nations that work pulling themselves apart.
Yes, I think so. As always, Douglas, a great pleasure. Thank you so very much indeed.
Great to be with you, Michael.